coffee in America.
Skyscraper boom in America. Cadillac zoom in America. Industry boom in America.
12 in a room in America.
Lots of new housing with more space.
Lots of doors slamming in our face.
I'll get a terrace apartment.
Better get rid of your accent.
Life can be bright in America.
If you can fight in America.
Life is alright in America.
If you're all white in America. America, la 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 America, America. Everyone there will give big cheers.
Everyone there will have moved here.
Over the years, have you ever met Donald Trump, the president of the United States?
You know, I did.
Where did you meet him?
Went up to their penthouse, his penthouse apartment, and it was, what a shocking experience. First of all, everything was gold. Everything was gold, like new rich people.
Classy.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing that really amazed me was the friezes on the ceiling, like Michelangelo. They had those in his apartment. He had friezes in the and
was it him with his finger almost touching God's?
Well, here's my finger. I'm naughty. But you know, he told us the price of everything.
Wow.
He hasn't changed.
Yeah, no, he hasn't.
Everywhere crime in America, organized crime in America, terrible time in America.
You forget I'm in America.
Begins with your grandfather.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
You say he's a sociopath.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
He had no empathy. He was incredibly driven in a way that turned other people, including his children, his wife, into pawns to be used to his own ends. If somebody could be of service to him, then he would use them. If they couldn't be, he excised them. And in my father's case, tragically, he was not of use. He was the wrong kind of person. He was the wrong person. He was the wrong son. And my dad never recovered from that. And my grandfather essentially needed to get rid of him.
You say your grandfather destroyed both your father because he wasn't the person your grandfather wanted him to be. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump is president of the United States, yet you say the grandfather destroyed him as well.
Yes. He went about it differently because, unfortunately for Donald, he could be of use to my grandfather. It wasn't as simple as that, of course. Donald had many years of watching my father be the wrong one, behaving differently, not being accepted for who he was. And clearly he learned the lesson from watching his almost 8-year-old brother be punished for being kind, for being generous, for being sensitive, the kind of person who could not deal with negativity, had no patience.
You call it toxic positivity.
Yes, because it allowed room for nothing else. And there are times in our lives when we are legitimately distressed, we're legitimately sad, we're legitimately in pain. And to be prevented from being able to feel those feelings honestly and openly is a form of torture. You know, my grandmother, who was sick and often and broke bones more times than I can count because of her osteoporosis, was in agony much of the time. You know, she'd come home from the hospital, she'd be in a hospital bed doing physical therapy, and just moving was extraordinarily painful for her. And my grandfather could not tolerate it. You know, it impinged on this idea he had that everything had to be great at all times. And the only people who suffered for that were the people who were actually in pain. You know, first my grandmother, then my dad, and then anybody else in the family who showed the weakness of being human. Very little to do with the boys. It was almost as if the boys were my grandfather's purview and the girls were hers. I think from quite early on, Donald just didn't expect much from her. He just didn't know how to relate to her, couldn't trust her. For Donald, when he was quite young, that there just wasn't enough love, attention,
Donald
support.
learned the lesson that if you want to survive and succeed in this family, you shouldn't be kind, you shouldn't be generous, and you shouldn't care about anything else, and you certainly shouldn't be interested in whether or not people loved you. My grandfather, as the head of it, who seemed to be only interested in money, these were people who had too much of that. Money is the only currency in your family. There's never enough of it because it can never take the place of things that really matter, like love and affection.
But it was all about the money, wasn't it?
I'm a Trump. You know, everything's about money in this family.
I spoke to Ambassador Bolton a few weeks ago, who said that he had never seen a head of state who was so easily manipulated by other heads of state, by strong men, who played him, as he said, like a fiddle. Is there something about your uncle's, the makeup of his personality that makes him manipulatable?
Sure, and that's also something that we can lay at the feet of my grandfather. Because Donald realized from a fairly young age that the only way to succeed was to be the kind of person my grandfather needed him to be. You know, the killer, the tough guy, somebody who could never admit weakness or could never admit being wrong. We basically find ourselves now with a person who just needs to have the things he has to believe about himself. He's the greatest, the best, repeated or told him by somebody else in order to make him malleable. And I think I write in the book that that's one of the things my grandfather did. He made Donald eminently useful to smarter, more powerful men.
Always been protected and continues to be protected from his inadequacies, from his incompetence, from his lack of knowledge, from his failures. And he's always had support of more powerful people. He's always had people protecting him from his mistakes.
I think the country needs to know about your uncle.
He's utterly incapable of leading this country. And it's dangerous to allow him to do so.
And if you're in the Oval Office today, what would you say to him?
Resign.